So if you remember when The Crow came out, you'll remember that I gave it a positive review. I was one of the few people in the YouTube space to actually come out and talk about why I liked the movie. Since then, I've gotten it on 4K, and I just recently watched it again, and I'm here to tell you guys, I still like it. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Nick here, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about 2024's The Crow. Now, this movie in and of itself was super controversial to be announced in the first place. The fact that they were remaking what was a cult classic that was beloved by so many people, and obviously carries its own tragic backstory with it, this new iteration of The Crow was not set up to succeed whatsoever. Now, I remember leading up to the movie when we would get the promo material, whether it be photos, a trailer, and people were not super hyped about this movie. It was already getting compared to Suicide Squad's Joker, and people were saying this movie was going to be a complete disaster. I had some hope with this movie going into it because I love Bill Skarsgård. And furthermore, I don't have this super nostalgic attachment to the original 94 film. That's not to say that I don't like the movie, because I definitely do. I grew up on that movie. That movie was in my household all the time. My mom loves it. My siblings love it. It's a movie I've always respected. But it's never been a movie that I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't touch this. This is sacred ground. If I don't feel that way about the original Halloween or The Exorcist, I'm not going to feel that way about The Crow. Now, this may be offensive to some people, but I just want to put it out there. The Crow's never been as popular as some superfans actually want to believe it is. It's always been very niche. It's a cult classic. It is not a classic. This is not a movie that blew off the box office doors, that has spawned sequels upon sequels that people just adore. No, there have been plenty of straight-to-video sequels with The Crow, and most, if not all of them, are gutter trash. You might be able to find some fun here and there, but this is not a widely respected series. Now, that's not me taking pot shots at The Crow. I'm simply just saying this is not some highbrow, untouchable product. It just isn't, and it never was. Going back to James O'Barr's original comic, it's quite different than the movie we got in 94, and I would even say 2024's movie is quite different from that source material as well. So going into this movie, I had hope, and I'm happy to say that I liked it the first time. But after I came out and I talked about why I liked it, and if you guys know anything about me, you know I'm going to give you reasons for why I like something. I'm not going to just say I liked it or didn't like it and then just wash my hands of it. No, if I like something, if it works for me, you're going to hear why. And if I don't, you're also going to hear why. In talking to a couple of my friends here in the YouTube space over the last few months, I honestly started to wonder if they saw something that I didn't see, if I was just blinded by Bill Skarsgård or whatever it might be. So I had to go back and rewatch this movie. Now, as I showed you guys earlier, I got it on 4K Steelbook for Christmas. And I'm actually really happy about that because I didn't go out and buy it. Not because I didn't love it. I was just like, do I really want to pay like $40 for a Steelbook? No, I didn't. And I just want to show you guys really quick. This is a really sick Steelbook. No matter what you think about the movie, it is a really sick Steelbook. And I want to open it up for you. And I'm going to take out the digital copy because I'm going to be giving that away on my Patreon. But that's a pretty cool Steelbook, right? Sick art. Looks nice, right? So in rewatching The Crow, a few things stood out. Look, first and foremost, I'm going to talk about some negatives with the movie. And one of my main negatives with this movie is the long build-up to get to Eric coming back from the dead. Now, there are going to be spoilers in here if you guys haven't seen the movie or you're not familiar with the source material, so you've been warned. Look, I understand and respect that director Rupert Sanders was really trying to sell us on the connection between Eric and Shelley. He wanted to sell us on their love. We had to believe that in order to believe that he would come back and try to avenge her and then eventually give his own soul to bring her back. So I understand that. And the chemistry between FKA Twigs and Bill Skarsgård is actually quite good. The problem is, I feel like a lot of the time spent together is a lot of making out and montage, and not so much deep talks. See, even someone that likes this movie like myself, I can watch the first 40-45 minutes of this movie and find myself kind of lulled to sleep at times. Because while you're doing the work necessary to get me to care about the characters and believe in that connection, you're not giving them the substance. The material just wasn't there in the script to sell us that these two are connecting on a deep emotional level. Now, positively, there's something to be said about the lack of actual deep connection there. And maybe it is a play on the fact that they're both recovering addicts. They're young. And maybe this love isn't actually love. Maybe it's lust. Maybe it's a flash in the pan. Maybe just like them chasing that high of the next drug, this love is a high that they're chasing as well. So you could definitely draw some symbolism there. However, I just don't feel like they really did that. So while I appreciate the attempt, I don't think the connection is there. Another negative I have about this movie is director Rupert Sanders. We'll get into something positive about him later, but first, with the negative, it seems like sometimes he thinks things are more important than they actually are. He'll focus the camera on something. He'll try to allude to something coming back and mattering later on in the movie. He thinks almost that it would appear that some things are actually more important or more highbrow than they actually are. And sometimes in a movie like this, you don't need all of that. See, symbolism is good, metaphors are good, but at times you're doing it overboard. You know, you're a little heavy-handed, and it gets to a point where I'm just like, okay, dude, we get it. You love what you're putting on screen. Now, those are really the only negatives that I have about this movie, and I mean that. Look, I think from top to bottom, a lot of this movie is structurally very good. Now, I'm never going to tell somebody that's a huge fan of the original film that they have to like this movie, because it is very different from the original film in a lot of ways. First and foremost, he's never called Eric Draven. He's just Eric in this movie. Now, we know he's Eric Draven, but that is intentional. It was clearly intentional by the filmmakers because they wanted to differentiate as much as possible from that 94 film. And look no further than the complete revamped look. Now, you may hate the look, but it is a totally different look. And again, that is because they wanted to stand apart. First and foremost, I gotta say, the acting all across the board, I think, is really, really good. I love Bill Skarsgård as Eric in this movie, and I really like FKA Twigs as Shelley. I don't feel like she gets enough to do, but I think when she's on screen, she's good, and I do like their chemistry, even if the dialogue was not really there for the two of them. I also quite like Danny Huston as Rogue. Like, I actually think that's a really cool character, and although I do feel like it goes a little bit too unexplained for me, I did really like him. I thought he was sinister, and I loved his cool, calm demeanor every time he's on screen. Look, what The Crow needed to do for me was to be a fun revenge flick, and I think this movie delivers on that. After you get past that first act, it really kicks into a high gear. There's a ton of action. There's a ton of gore. There's some really good effects. And most importantly, you can tell Bill Skarsgård is just having a blast in the role. Now, I've seen online too the argument of, well, how can you be for that if you're not really buying into their love? Isn't that the whole point? And while it is, I tend to actually lean more toward the drug addict angle, honestly. I don't think they were actually all that deeply in love in this iteration. I think he thought they were. But also, I think he just had a lot of hatred. He had a lot of rage in his heart because ever since he was a kid, he was kind of pushed aside and bullied and treated like shit. So him coming back and just killing a bunch of awful people, I don't have to believe that he loves Shelley all that much. I just have to believe that he believes that. And I have to believe that this person could be capable of doing that. And I do. Another thing that I want to mention when it comes to Rupert Sanders is, although I feel like a lot of times it is heavy-handed, and I did mention that, this guy does action really well. Like, it's very sleek, it's very polished, it's fun, the camera moves to tell a story. I love the sequence in the SUV with Eric. I think that that is a great sequence. There's a lot of stuff that actually is really visceral, and I think that's a lot of how it's filmed, the sound design. Think no further than him getting run over by a truck. I think that Rupert Sanders at times really does shine in these action moments. I feel like when he's trying to be deeper than that, when he thinks he has more to say than that, is when he gets in his own way. But then when he's doing just an action, big fun set piece, I think he's really good at that. I think the movie looks really, really well done, and I love the sound design and the soundtrack to this movie. You've got Joy Division in this movie, you've got The Veils. Total Depravity is a fantastic song. I just think, just like the 94 version, it's got a lot of really good music cues, and that is important in a Crow movie. Look, the biggest reason why people couldn't get behind this movie movie is, one, they just didn't feel like it needed to be remade or rebooted, whatever you want to call it. Two, they didn't like how different the iteration of Eric Draven was. And three, they actually felt it was kind of sacrilege to Brandon Lee. Now, I don't think any actor ever owns a role, and I'm just going to say that, no matter how great they are in that role. Again, I go back to looking at Halloween, my favorite series, and I was totally open to Malcolm McDowell coming in as Dr. Loomis, and I think he did a great job. I don't think it's disrespectful to Donald Pleasance. If anything, I think it's to bring it in for a new generation. Give them something that you once loved. But, I don't know, liven it up, freshen it up. There's nothing wrong with that. I think this situation for The Crow was damned if you do, damned if you don't. I don't think Rupert Sanders is a bad filmmaker, not when it comes to action at least. I don't think anybody would make the case that Bill Skarsgård is a bad actor, or Danny Huston for that matter. I don't think anybody would look at this movie and say that it looks bad, or that it sounds bad, or it's edited poorly. No, technically speaking, it looks really good. It's a well-done movie. It had a budget of $50 million, and you can see every red cent of that on screen. But it's just not for some people. It's not something they wanted. It's not something they were asking for. And quite frankly, they have no interest in ever seeing it. And I'm never going to change minds. I'm never going to, and I don't want to try to. I just want to tell you guys that if you're someone like me that watched this movie and you found it to be a fun action revenge flick, you liked Bill Skarsgård, you liked some of the set pieces, you liked whatever it is you liked about it, that's okay. You're allowed to do that. See, I would have loved to have seen a sequel to this movie, and Bill Skarsgård said he was open to it as well. I think it would have been actually really nice to see The Crow live on for, the same iteration for multiple movies, rather than recasting every damn movie and going straight to video. Unfortunately, this movie tanked. And a lot of people will say that it tanked because, oh my god, everybody was so upset they were remaking it. When in reality, I think a large reason was nobody cared about The Crow anymore. I just think that's really what it is. The impetus behind me rewatching this movie was I had seen a lot of year-end lists from people here on YouTube and friends of mine that they put The Crow as one of the worst movies of the year. And I totally respect that. But I was honestly starting to wonder if I was going crazy. And maybe I am. I get told on here a lot that I like really shitty movies. And if that's the case, that's the case. I don't really care. I'll own it, I guess. But I don't really view it that way. I kind of just go into every movie open-minded, ready and willing and able to get whatever it's going to give me. And this movie gave me something that I really enjoyed. And not having that attachment to the original film, it made it so much easier to accept and like this movie. So I wanted to rewatch it, and I'm happy to say that I liked it. I think this movie does well what it needed to do well. I do wish that the first 45 minutes of this movie were handled differently, but aside from that, everything about this movie I like. So I'm not going to run around and say, this is a 5-star movie, you've got to see it, it's incredible. No, but it's like a solid 3.5-star movie. It really is. And I feel like if you don't have that connection to the original movie, and if you can get past that roadblock, I think a lot of people can see that. And I think a lot of people hopefully will one day. But I want to hear down below in the comment section what kind of shit you got for me. How wrong am I for liking The Crow? Even watching it a second time, am I still blinded by my own idiocy? Or am I enlightened? Have you seen the light just like I have? Whatever it is, I want to hear it all down below in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like on it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm pulling out.